4:50, no, 4:48. First question is the agenda. Are people happy with the agenda? Any objections to the agenda as presented? Without objection, the agenda is adopted as distributed. September minutes. Anybody have any corrections or additions?
I do not.
Hearing nobody speaking, the minutes from the September 3rd meeting are now approved as distributed. Next item on the agenda is, not unusually, the golf report. Hi, Paul.
Hey, Steve. Yeah, there's something tracking there. Is that some sort of...
Might be Craig's mic.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
He's on?
He's on.
Oh, good.
Yeah. Yeah, so we're kind of at the end of the season here. We closed the course today and aerified the greens, which is kind of like the opposite of the spring robin, you know. So we're pretty much done. The weather's been good, so people have been trickling in. Seems like we're looking at our records from last year, and just business just really dwindled off. And the pattern we're seeing now is, you know, we're at the facility and we have like no business, barely any business at all until later in the afternoon. Then it gets crowded. So that's been the pattern. That's fine. And like I say, we were airifying today. We had a few people that came out. And we're disappointed they couldn't golf, but you know, no tee times. It's not, you know, it's October, so you know we feel bad about that. But you know, we'll be opened up for, you know, people, members and stuff, or people who want to play beyond that. And we'll just see how that goes. We're airifying other things, but that won't really interfere with play. The greens are pretty much where you have to shut down. So I can't really think of anything else. Our revenues are good. We had a good month, and looking at the total year's numbers, we thought we were going to be struggling to meet last year's numbers.
Patrick, I'm asking to join. It hasn't.
Oh, sorry.
We're trying to reach last year's numbers, which were, you know, progressively better than they have been. So then we had a bad.
It's feedback here, Steve. Let me adjust this.
It's drippy.
The adjust.
The captions will appear now.
I got it. 1 second.
Had to turn his volume down.
While we're waiting for them, the tee boxes are really hard. Do you think we might aerate them too?
Yeah, those will be aerated. Basically, we you know, we just went into this dry condition. Everything had been really, really good. Tee boxes are something that, our tee boxes aren't that great, but they were doing really good this year. But yeah, they got hard there a little bit at the end, and we kind of increased our irrigation on them. But we have to be conservative there too, because we only have so much water to deal with. So that's kind of the condition there. But
Patrick, if I have to pull the captions up myself, I know how to do that from the settings.
Well, it's not the captions, this is feeding back. I'm trying to turn off the volume.
Oh,
And I don't.
the button on the side of the phone.
There is, but it's not working.
Put it in a jar.
My mailing address?
Get your postcard.
That'll do it.
Okay. 56 cents.
once upon a time, we had captions for all the screens, didn't we?
Try there, button.
I don't recall.
Yeah,
I'm the only one who probably used it.
yeah,
See what I got.
There we go.
great. Sure.
Sorry about that.
No, it's okay, thank you.
And then, oh, I got to turn on the captions.
I saw Craig's picture up there at one point.
He's here. He's on.
Okay, oh, I see him, good. Hi, Craig. I take it that I didn't see you at the time. You didn't object to the minutes of the agenda, did you? No, okay, good. Go, Paul, the ball's still in your court.
Yeah, so on the tee boxes, yeah, we're gonna be verifying those as well. As far as the conditions of them, when it gets dry like that, there's some things we could try, like putting wetting agents. We do that on our greens. That might help that situation. We can try that next season. And so, yeah, that's what we can do there. Yeah, other than that, I mean, I can't really think of anything that's different or that we're doing. We're gonna be, continuing to try to have accessible play to whatever degree we're having. We have limits as far as manning the clubhouse. We're not gonna be manning the clubhouse like normal hours, maybe on the weekends or something, but, Eric's really my only person there. I trained one of our other people to come in and run the till there, but on weekends, they won't be able to do it because they're like Gopher fans, so they're always gone on Gophers, down to the Gophers every weekend. And so, yeah, we're kind of at the end here. I do some contract work with other courses in October, so I'm kind of like gone and back, but yeah, we're getting all the work done that needs to be done to close the course, and then, the final spray and roping off the greens and all that. And so typically, this time of year, people are, want us to stay open. We hear that comment, and then, we explain the things we have to do and that we'll be around and that sort of thing. And then the weather turns bad the next week and nobody comes out anyway. So then we get our stuff done and on to the next season. So, but, this case, this season, it looks like, we might have some weather that continues on through October, and we'll try to accommodate that as best we can. But for most practical purposes, our normal season's kind of over.
Will the driving range be open if
Sure.
there's somebody there at the desk? Okay. Anybody have any other questions or comments about golf?
Next life,
What's that?
next life.
Craig, we're ready for the city council report.
Thanks, Paul.
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you, Paul.
Thanks, Paul.
Okay, the main topic that we had was the second hearing on the approval of the tax abatement for the Heights apartment building project, which passed. So that has passed at the county level and it has passed at the city level. And according to, I think the project is going to start in the spring of next year. I think that's pretty much the only issue, the only item on the agenda we had.
Remind me of what the Heights project is, Craig?
It's the apartment building, the local investors that are investing in the apartment building that's going to be built just before you get to the harbor, the old harbor light,
That's,
top of the hill on the right.
that's the one where they had to go back to the drawing board because basements were too expensive?
Yeah, I think they redid some engineering on it. So they're working with the EDA and a bunch of other people that are helping to sponsor this with monies, IRRB, EDA, and through tax abatement, it's getting moved forward now for a spring build of next year.
Wow.
Anybody else have questions about the city council?
Craig, is there any indoor parking in that development?
Well, I don't know what the final plans look like. I think that originally it was gonna be all underground parking, or under the building. I don't think they're gonna do that now.
Okay.
So they'll have to figure out an area for parking. They have to have a parking spot for every unit, plus, I don't know how it is now. It used to be handicap for every 10, but I don't know what the rules are now on that.
Yeah.
So they'll have to have parking for, what, 36, 40 some vehicles, I guess. Yeah, I haven't seen a layout of the building or the site yet. That'll be coming, I'm sure.
That's our neighbor. It's our immediate neighbor.
I figured it
So I
was,
was interested. Yeah.
yeah. Well, we all drive by there all the time.
All the time. Yeah.
That's why we wonder about 61. Anybody else have thoughts about the city council? Anything else you want to add, Craig?
Nope, that's about everything we had on the agenda. It was kind of a light agenda that night.
By the way,
Last week.
they've succeeded in closing in the building before the cold weather comes.
Yeah, the municipal building, the emphasis is going to be to get the liquor store portion of it finished, ahead of the city hall part of it. So they're gonna, get the building buttoned up, and then getting the walls, up within the building, and then I think they're gonna shift over to the liquor store part and try to get that as functional as possible, so that they can move into that as soon as possible.
Okay, if there's nothing
Yeah.
else about city council, we have the parks report, which has been distributed.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. So, no surprise, September's great weather was great for camping and boating, and we were able to gain quite a bit on our year-to-date tally. We're up 4% now versus last year as of the end of September, so that's more like it. But yeah, big gain last month, and still busy this month, of course. The peak colors right now are bringing people out, and next 3 weekends are booked solid. So,
The whole campground?
for the weekends, yeah.
On the weekends, yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
And maybe not the whole in the sense of the seasonal side of things being emptying out, and most of those store on site, so they look still full, but the guests aren't around.
Uh-huh.
Several take them with though, and we treat those sites as non-reservable, first come, first serve, and we'll probably make use of them
Okay.
for last minute
Wow.
people that are arriving off the road. And yeah, it's still busy now. We've just changed office hours over to 8 to 4, and it's still busy at 4. So I had a hard time getting up to this meeting tonight just because of the,
Where will you store the potty trailer?
well, that's a good question, Steve. If you're looking ahead on that, we have options. So I'm sure there's, as far as where we'll store it, could be at the shop, I would imagine, be the most secure location, outdoors, up at the new Public Works facility. Needs to be winterized, but we'll store it someplace safe. So yeah, we've got through MEA weekend, that's the October 20th, that's a Sunday, that's our last scheduled water day, full-service water day. And it looks like we'll make it with, looking at a 2-week forecast, it's all 60s and 40s and sunshine, so we'll continue to be busy, I have a feeling, as long as the weather's nice.
So whose decision is it about the portable restroom?
Ours, city councils.
Park
know.
board, you mean ours, or city
The
council?
cities, city
Uh-huh.
council.
Okay.
I mean, we would certainly, the park board can have influence, or what, we
But
have
it's more the
options.
city.
Yeah, I think,
Yeah.
so the story on this trailer is was a temporary solution to the need for public bathrooms while City Hall was being rebuilt. City Hall will be open next season, so that there won't be that immediate need for public restrooms. And I would say a good thing in terms of the trailer not being really suited for the volume of use it got and the rough use it got. We were plugging things and breaking things almost every week. So during the busy season. So we've sort of proven it like is not a good idea moving forward to put back out into Boulder Park next summer, for example. Porta potties, yes. permanent structure, probably more likely, and that would be in our realm of Boulder Park planning and development. You know, whether or not we go down that road of a brick and mortar plumbed
Is that a
facility.
possibility?
That is a possibility, yeah. That's I would say, the foreshadowing for what's to come in Boulder Park for public restrooms.
Is that a new thing, or did I miss it, or,
It's been talking about for several years.
so I missed it?
Yeah. But it hasn't been a front and center.
Probably
thing.
wasn't paying attention or something.
Yeah, it was on the discussion this late winter, spring with the portable restroom idea, where like, oh, wouldn't it be great just to have a plumbed facility there?
Be wonderful.
Yeah.
You not only missed it, but I don't even know what the noun is here we're talking about.
Well, permanent porta potty,
Oh,
Like a park
A restroom.
structure restroom.
restroom.
Yeah. Like a brick and mortar plumbed, you know, public restroom.
you mean not really portable?
Not temporary, not portable,
Fixed.
not holding
That kind of
tanks.
thing gets pumped out every so often.
Not that.
No.
No,
Plumbed,
City plum.
Right.
flushable,
did you say plumbed?
Wow.
yeah.
Where would that be?
Yet to be determined. All this is very subject to
Sure.
further planning and discussion.
What are
It
people
really
thinking?
wraps itself into a bigger conversation about Boulder Park and Coast Guard Point.
So we're
Right.
talking about the Boulder Park
Right.
location? Okay.
That's a great idea.
Well, maybe. But yes, it
Well-
has been.
And would
But
you,
the same,
would you
like-
face it with stone rather than brick, so that it looks like it belongs there,
Depends
like a
how much you
state
want to
park.
spend.
like a state park?
Yeah. We didn't get Boulder Park included in legacy funding though, so it'd be an out-of-pocket expense.
Yes.
And yet, maybe there's a tit for tat where, because we do have legacy funding to build out park campground infrastructure,
Yeah,
our capital funds can be used for Boulder Park redevelopment.
yeah.
But it's definitely a bigger discussion with the community on priorities and the, if you will, master plan for Boulder Park, Coast Guard parking lot.
The fact that you had all these problems with this portable one suggests there's a need for something there.
Well, and there has been porta potties in the past that, yeah, everyone loves to go potty in Boulder Park, it seems.
And City Hall,
Maybe we
the
can
new
get
City
porta
Hall
potties
will
painted
have
to be more like
Yeah,
a
public
public
never-
rest.
never adequate.
The new city hall will be quite adequate in size and scope. It'll have a family room, it'll have a women's room with 3 stalls, it'll have a men's room with a stall and 2 urinals, and so sort of a triple what it was used to for size-wise and facility-wise, and, you know, probably won't handle the bus that pulls up on a, you know, August weekend, but definitely was some foresight in the new city hall facility being like
Yeah.
adequate and year-round and comfortable. But again, it's budgets, it's cleaning, it's maintenance, it's a big discussion.
But like a WPA building out in Boulder Park, indestructible building that the tourists can't mess up.
That would be the goal.
Yeah,
Like, and I've always dreamed of like a dishwasher type of a facility where you just close the door and press clean. I'm working on that patent.
yeah.
AI.
It's not all stainless and it's just got a
You
big
could do it from home.
wand.
The thing that I noticed going past Boulder Park and those people are, is I know we've discussed this before, but there's like no sidewalks.
No,
Yeah,
People are walking in the middle of the road both
Right.
directions. It's,
yes.
but I don't know who's that falls under that, because that's a bad stretch right there. But
It's
I don't
county, that's the kind of middle no man's land of, it's the county is Broadway. So, yes and no, it's city, like, starting at the parking lot, and Boulder Park is city.
Yeah.
But the Broadway itself is a county road, so the actual sidewalk build-out would
Would
have
be
to be
the-
collaborative, yeah, I believe it would have to run through the county. Not
That
that
would
it
take
couldn't
the
or
easement
shouldn't
on
be
both
done,
sides would go out quite a ways to,
which is, I think, already there.
is it?
It's just
yeah.
not established as sidewalks.
I'm gonna need to stay awake during these meetings.
yeah,
Yeah.
really, Bob.
This is a great idea.
Yeah. So anyway, the
The
trailer,
porta potties, the
No,
Building.
like a real,
A
Wants a
stone,
real
a
building.
stone-faced WPA style building
yeah,
out on the point. It's great.
that's how we're gonna keep them coming back to the meetings.
yeah.
I
Timber,
support Bob's idea.
copper roof, yeah, timber.
Looks like Gooseberry, you know, the
Oh, yeah,
one on the point, you know?
yeah. Maybe the CCC can come back to life.
You got any WPA guys on staff who can do that?
No, if we did, we put them to work on the old walls, on the old seawall that's
Oh, yeah.
crumbling, and the library arches. So anyway, I would say more discussion to come on the future of the trailer. The options before us are just as described. We can sell it on the used market. We can sell it back to the company that we bought it from. They had a 12-month period where I called them this a month ago saying, hey, we're interested in the buyback program this fall. No, you have to wait till next April when we bought it. It's a 12-month wait. So there's that option in the spring. We've also internally talked about keeping it as a temporary facility when we're in the process of rebuilding Bathhouse 3 and our rec hall. You know how our master plan shows that as a top priority, and so in the very near future, like 2 years or so, we'll be rebuilding Bathhouse 3. It'll be closed, with this trailer being a suitable temporary alternative to that, just for camp guests mostly, you know.
But
not-
you could plumb that in actually then, right?
We could hook it up to our sewer, yeah. So we got options. We being the city, the park board feels strongly about certain things, certainly voice up. Ultimately, the city council will make the decision.
It's just that the park staff ended up being the maintenance for that.
Well, we do bathrooms and we do them well, so it was,
If you're good at what
Yeah.
you do.
well,
That dude.
my team is good, for
Yeah, I
sure.
love it.
And we owned it, like Bathhouse 5 is what we nicknamed it. So we kept it nice. And we got help from the streets department as well.
I'll bring a picture of a WPA bathroom in so you can see what I
I've
have
seen
in
'em.
mind.
I know 'em.
Yeah, I mean, they're
State parks
beautiful.
are great, yeah.
And you can't damage them because they're all rock. They're beautiful.
I like it. What else is going on? So
Made my day.
reservations for 2025, hard to believe, but November starts that season. Hence our next discussion about rates, where we want to set the overnight rates if possible tonight, but we'll get those plugged into the online booking machine, because starting November 1st, May 1st is available to arrive. Same scheme as the last season, where it's on this rolling date, 180 days prior to your arrival date. Hopefully that'll continue to get adopted, or people, you know, now it's the second year of that, so it shouldn't be a surprise to a lot of our old timer guests. So it's been a good system. The dispersed demand, I think, has been effective. Seasonals have this month of January to get their deposit in, so that's the off-season.
Is there any, do we know any more about our master plan and all and the money and all that stuff? Is there anything happening on that, or will there be?
No, I haven't spent any time on that during this busy season. I feel it's more of an off-season, that now that after we set rates November through April, we have our time to, I think, focus in on that first phase of Bathhouse 3, Rec Hall, Trailhead parking lot, and really put some development costs to that in preparation to apply for funding next spring.
And if we applied next spring, we would actually get the money a year later, or during the fiscal year from July to July, or what?
I'm not aware of the deadlines and timelines on that yet.
Well, it'd be good to know some point.
Yeah, no, it's just been nice to focus on the operations for the last few months. You know, obviously haven't had a lot of bandwidth for planning. And it too
We're not unhappy.
It too felt like we had some major projects going on between the boat launch and the landing, and then with City Hall, and even back to the highway. The city itself has been really busy with big projects. And so we've all just kind of taken a little breather on the park right now and focused on City Hall and the liquor store. So we'll get back into it this off-season.
Anybody have any other questions or comments about park report related issues?
You know, a WPA building would look great where that rec hall is, and a trailhead,
Yes.
and a trail could come down and through the Norway pines and into
Oh,
the,
boy.
Maybe we could get it to look like one of the rocks that got thrown up on the shore.
I'll bring in pictures and show you what I
Let's
have in
go.
mind.
That's the fun of the
I
design
got the book,
process.
I got the book with the pictures.
You're the
I'll bring it in.
brainstorm,
Yep.
Bob.
Great
You're in
idea.
charge.
You got it.
I love it. This is
Sold.
great.
You gotta get a crew together for us, though.
Isn't there a
WPA.
version of the Civilian Conservation Corps that in existence again?
There's the
Sort of.
Minnesota Conservation
Sort of.
Corps,
Maybe
MCC.
we could get some of the work done by them.
I'd like them to come and pull Tansy, but we'll work on the
There's a
WPA
lot of that.
brick idea, or, sorry, stone. No, I think,
All right?
I think you're right about Boulder Park, like, such a prime location.
Yeah, not to build something ugly, build something aesthetically rewarding and durable and indestructible.
And functional.
Because apparently people can't take care of things, so, you know.
There's always.
Now I'm on
a few.
vacation.
So it'll be the only non-porta potty with a granite toilet seat, you're saying?
You walk into a public facility, you treat it with respect, you clean it up, and you leave.
Most,
How hard is that?
not hard for 90% of the
Yeah.
population.
Okay, well, have we adequately aired the question of the
WPA building.
architecture?
It's coming. I got the book.
All right, so we'll see it at the next meeting, no doubt. Old
Great.
business is update on Solomon's public art
Oh,
project
yeah.
that we talked about a couple months ago.
That's right. So I was anticipating this with our CEC meeting in September, just a week or so ago. I'm just a XO member of the CEC. I'm not a voting member. So I participated in the meeting just to kind of get the speed of Moab's project with the CEC. I actually met with Moab on site at Boulder Park, the middle of September, so several weeks back. He was in town. We met in Boulder Park and discussed two potential locations, really on the ground, being able to say, could it be there or could it be here? And so that's news, I think, to both the CEC and to this board, is if we remember back to August, you gave preliminary approval for the potential location. So a lot of preliminary potentials there. Two locations that have been identified, maybe what I alluded to in the August meeting, which would be up in the rocks of the break wall where it's meeting the shoreline. The sheet piling sort of terminates into the corner there by the trading post, and there's some really big rip-rap black rock that is right in that nook. And naturally, for my eye, that's where driftwood would wash up in a big storm. And so just in the natural scheme of placement, this was on my eye, thinking maybe in those big rocks. Now, of course, that exposes the piece to storms and waves and maybe not the best location. Moab had a whole different idea, and it was more to as you face the lake, to the left, but easier to describe as you're pulling into the Coast Guard parking lot, and we placed those large boulders along the curve there, right on the other side of those boulders.
When you say on the other side, you mean the landward side, not the seaward side?
Right, to the north of the big boulders, as you pull into Coast Guard parking, there's a really large, kind of half grass, and then it transitions into cobblestone. Right now, there's some picnic tables there, and a bike rack, and a green garbage can, but it's a really open space. It's just south of the Wayne Portrat's little canoe sculpture that's sort of tucked away right at the boulders. So it's a much more like obvious, open, like hard to miss, like obvious spot. Like he I feel was sensitive to the concerns of the committee on August, where that little corridor funnel right by the trading post, it's like the gateway, as Ann Baradas described, and that being really
Not big enough.
prime and popular,
Yeah.
and like not the right spot. So I think Moab took those words to put it in a separate corner, that's removed from that walking area and really stands alone as a flat, open space. And so those ideas were shared with the CEC last month. There weren't any strong opinions on the CEC about those two locations. Like, if anything, the CEC is going to take a step back right now because of form and function and their role in all of this. We feel like there's been some missteps and there's been some misdirections, and the CEC as a committee, as a volunteer committee, needs more formal direction and structure from us, from the city. Was sort of the outcome of this Moab project, actually, because of how this is not going smoothly. The CEC is pausing and circling back to the city, the mayor, Tracy Benson's involved, Administrator Roth, a park board member would be appreciated that has an interest in this as a subcommittee to work out the details of what is the CEC, really work out the agreement between the city council and the CEC and really give them a clear direction and a clear structure for handling public art. And so the piece, the Driftwood piece is, I think, it's gonna be subject to the structure that gets set up now that we know we need it, right?
I
Then we
mean,
kinda
it's
get
gonna
that-
be delayed until the
Until the CEC
CEC.
has a blueprint for success,
Uh-huh.
you know? I think we all got the sense from our August meeting that this just hasn't been institutionally vetted properly.
Right, yeah, it seemed like there was people
Too
from
much,
both,
yeah.
it's just like it was warring factions
Yes.
at our meeting.
Yes, it was very awkward.
Yeah, it was very awkward.
And so we discussed that last week at the CEC. Moab wasn't there. And then, yes, his project is kind of backburnered right now. Because the biggest component is his quest for a piece of driftwood is obviously coming up empty and difficult. And like, the whole piece of art is not in his hands yet, and far from it. And so it's difficult to make any kind of final approval on this piece where we don't know it, we don't see it.
Am I correct that part of the issue is that with the CEC is that it spoke with too many voices?
There was dissent, yes.
Okay.
And yet when they took a step back last week to say like, where's the agreement with the city council on how we are to operate and how we are to score art and make recommendations, it's missing. Like they've been a kind of a ad hoc group without formal structural, like bylaws, for example, or any kind of like,
A model
Mission,
from
yeah.
somewhere else.
Yeah.
If there's something operating well, some
Yeah.
other community.
if they're gonna be the Public Arts Commission for the city council,
Then what's their role?
they need
Yeah,
that in writing.
Right.
How did they feed into the Morrison piece?
Not much,
Because that came out swell.
because it was park board, park department, CJ Fernandez.
Yeah,
Like, CJ worked with the CEC on the 61 amenity package, and that maybe was the genesis for the Morrison and the landing and that in their Highway 61 planning for the pedestrian corridor, is how the landing and the Morrison
Yeah.
kind of was in the CEC's court. But even before that, we had been, as a part of our community connection quest for a landing, been working with CJ, and it was much more of a park department project.
we had another house guest, we've had an earlier one, who came this last week, walked downtown, said, "What is that?" And was so impressed that they went to visit Hazel. I mean, picked it up and carried it all the way, just from watching it. We've had that happen a couple, 3 times.
Yeah, it's pretty profound.
It's amazing.
It is.
Some visitors are just dazzled by that, and that's the effect you want.
Exactly.
You know, not just, you know, who forgot to store the Viagra, but you know, this is something serious.
Do I remember that that was funded out of rec park funds entirely? Yeah.
Correct.
And that came out great.
Yeah, it did.
But, so the present state of the poem of sublime proportion is, I think, still working, yeah, still churning and still looking for the piece of driftwood, and once and if and when that's secured and the visualization of what this is actually looking like and how is it mounted and is it up and down or is it horizontal, that's all still working out.
Is he focused, is he starting here? Like, he's not gonna try to start anywhere else?
That's
or-
my understanding.
Huh,
Because of his close ties with the R County and this
Oh.
like sort of in with the local,
oh,
you know,
That-
several local artists
so that he could
support him.
carry that to other
Yeah.
places.
His idea
but-
was to be successful here as a pilot project.
Yeah, wow.
So
Wonder
it's-
what kind of timeline he's on.
It's pretty ambitious, and that was kind of the rush of August, where it's like, because of his state arts funding
Right,
grants,
right.
there's some timelines.
I bet. Huh.
But so the update is, there's no rush anymore. We feel like the CEC needs to get some formal direction from the city council. And the mayor has asked for a park board member to participate in that. And so if anyone is,
Well, if the mayor has asked, we should respond.
Yes, you should.
and it would be just a one-off or two, like, meeting with Tracy, Mike, and I, and
Sure.
I heard, for the minutes, we can record that Kay volunteered to serve on this committee.
Yeah.
So,
thank you,
Sure,
Kay.
I'll be happy to. I don't know what else I can do, but
and only one arm was
I
up
haven't had-
behind her back.
mediation
If-
training.
If you're gonna build something that's capital intensive, do it well.
Yeah.
Don't screw around with it.
Like WPA, do that well.
Like well, really, 100 years later, it still looks good.
That's right,
I mean, that has meaning when you're thinking that way, you know?
That's right.
Don't just throw it out there.
Well, thank you, Kay.
Sure,
Yeah.
let me know.
It's courageous of you.
So you,
We probably need to move on to the question of
I'll be in touch.
rates for
It would
next
be
year.
like soon, like this week,
Okay.
if you're available. But I'll follow up on the email tomorrow.
Okay,
Or
great.
after the meeting. Thanks, Kay.
Yep,
Amazing volunteerism.
Yeah, Steve, you're right. Rates are on the new business. You've all seen my memo.
Yep.
A lot of the kind of usual why we do this, in case anyone needs a reminder, but your group's been together for a while now. This has been a good group for understanding the need for incremental rate adjustments, property tax relief, reinvestment in our operations, insurance raises, et cetera.
What's been the national, or the Minnesota cost of living increase over the year, do we know?
I haven't spent much time looking at that.
Something less than 3%?
I'm sure we'll hear about it at 8 o'clock tonight in detail.
Actually, if one of you would just look on your phone for your searches and ask that question, it would come up and tell you.
So my
I see
question,
Dave reaching for his phone, that's good. What's the Minnesota CPI from fiscal year 2024 to 25?
well, maybe somebody over here knows, on the back sheet here where they, I forget, is standard and prime, is that just location and view? Okay. Location and view. I was looking at these two up here.
Right.
Standard and prime.
so Dave, when you said there was a 4% increase right now of revenue, right? And we had a 5% rate increase. So is that saying,
Occupancy dipped slightly.
You're saying that June was light.
June.
What
June
about
was
July?
Even. July and August were even or up a small 1%. So again, occupancy slightly down.
But you're catching up now.
Now we've caught up, or we've
Yep.
kind of approached the same, I mean, June was the real deal. We were down like 40-some thousand, over 20%. July and August is kind of a hard to grow because we're either 90% full or 88%
Right.
full.
Right.
So I think we were slightly less full, given that the revenue wasn't up 5% in July and August. It was up 1%. But now September was like a growth month or a weather-dependent month where we were like plus 26, 27,000, which like kind of took care of June's deficit. But yeah, as overall, I think my rule of thumb on this is occupancy was slightly down in the sense of our revenue only being up 4%.
And I've talked to a couple of businesses, well, just Java Moose and Will's Best Donuts both said they are about 20% down in July itself.
wow,
And the other months haven't been great, but July was not a good.
have been or haven't?
They haven't been.
Oh.
But they're not down as much as 20% like July was, which is a
Wow,
strange month to be down, but,
Yeah.
you know.
But in August, there are lines outside the Java Moose There are people sitting in those chairs.
Yep, yep.
It
There
looks
was a
busy.
line out there just the other day.
It looks busy to me.
It looks busy to me. But maybe they were,
Yeah,
maybe
just
that line was
hanging
longer
out,
last year.
right.
They were just saying over last year, they were both down about 20%.
2.59 is what I'm coming up on the CPI between last year and this year. I think that's nationwide. It's not giving me a Minnesota read.
Yeah, it sounds low to me, but I didn't look it up either. We'll hear about it tonight.
Do we need to act on it today?
I would recommend we set weekly rates, just so we have the online booking machine ready for November books.
Right.
Seasonal is less important. And then this final topic of site classifications is
I
a
don't-
big one.
That's interesting.
Yep,
I don't
The whole
feel
thing.
strongly between 3, 4, and 5% generally. I'm still in favor of maybe not increasing the tenting rates, because that's typically people who are not all that, who are more subject to cost of living increases than the rest of us.
we didn't change it last year.
Pardon?
We did not change it last year.
I know, and I thought that was a good decision.
Yeah,
And I wouldn't mind continuing it.
What are your thoughts about the tenting rates?
That might have a slight, now that you mentioned that, a reflection on like the across the board 5%, and we have 50 tent sites, and that's a good chunk of our fleet that was the same rate, so this whole like occupancy versus rate. I didn't consider the fact that we froze tent sites, and so there wasn't that much to gain,
Oh.
right? If we didn't,
Right.
if those 50 cents, or if those 50 tent sites continued at the 2023 rate, honestly, I feel like they're not just fixed income starter families tenting, it's like Sprinter vans, $100,000 Sprinter vans.
Oh, no, I wasn't understanding that. I thought we were talking about people in tents.
Anybody can take a tent site, and we see this with van people that don't need hookups, that they'll take the $30 tent site.
Well, can we charge more for, if there's a van as opposed to
No,
a
we
tent?
charge you on the site classification, not the rig. And even tenters, you'd be surprised how much money they have when they come to
They're
Grand
doing these
Marais.
tents.
I don't, it's kind of splitting hairs on the whole poor versus rich, and tenters are, it's true they're not, when you look at state forests and even state parks, yeah, cheap, tent sites are cheap. 15, 20, $30 is a lot. So we have that competition, if you will, but you're in the forest you're not in downtown Grand Marais. So it's not really apples to oranges tent sites.
So the hoi polloi have places to go that don't cost as much as us. Okay, then I feel better about it.
We're downtown Grand Marais on the lake, and our rates reflect that. I've never been shy about that. We've tracked the market over the years and what state parks charge and what Burlington Bay charges and what Two Harbors charges, and we're the most. We're kind of proud of that because we're the best. And slowly but surely, Burlington Bay and Black Beach now and Silver Bay have copied us.
Coming up.
They've checked our rates, they've checked our policies even on extra pet or extra vehicles and extra people. And now you look at their rate cards and boy, they're very similar to us. It might be a few dollars less, but not like 5 or 10 years ago where they were $10 less. And so the whole market, RV markets, it's subject to your neighbor, and because we have no competitive neighbor in town, and even within a 50-mile radius, we set our rates high. And our occupancy is pretty solid. If I was like hearing a lot of, oh, too expensive, honey, let's keep going, like I would be a little more sensitive to these prices, but honestly, I work the desk a fair amount and no one ever questions the rate. I shouldn't say no one, but 99% of the folks are, don't even look at it, don't even care about it. And I'm not trying to be like snobby here, but
So we have the option of 3, 4, and 5% in front of us. 3%
You
would
could-
meet the
you could
national
imagine that.
cost standard of living. We don't know about Minnesota, but we assume it's at least equal.
yes.
Probably.
And, Sam and I were talking about these prices too, where like a 3% kind of kicks a bunch of 50-cent prices in. and 5% creates a bunch of 25-cent endings. And, you know, just for the sake of flat rate kind of quoting like 46 or 48 a night, it's like, we don't like the cents endings. We never have, and it's maybe just a pet peeve of like quoting rates. Once the tax is
Yeah.
added on, it always ends up
In
odd.
the sense, yeah.
Because these are pre-tax. Our tax is very steep because of lodging and local rec tax and county highway taxes, 8.375, or sorry, 12.375 of tax on these rates. So that's easily another $5.
Aha, I'm glad to know that.
Yeah. So we're like unabashedly expensive. And maybe we go with even like 32s and 37s and 47s versus the 50 cents, which would like take the 3% away and make it more like 2.5. Or some of these are rounding, you know, up and down. At the 5% suggestions, if we were to take the 25 cents off, you're in the
I'm
more like a
less
4%
concerned about
range.
those numbers now that you tell me what the state parks are available at a lower price.
Yes.
Then if they want to go Cadillac, they can come here.
State parks, yeah, you generally have to pay for a pass or a sticker, and then it's not just the price of the site, but there's the day pass. If you're a sticker, it's easier, but
Right.
there's a little like apples to
The
oranges
sticker's not
there.
that expensive for the season, is it?
I don't know
It's
anymore.
not that.
No. Okay, so how do we decide between 3, 4, and 5?
Well, I think Kay brought up a good point, that, you know, you said we're up 4%, you know, and we did 5%, right? Without the tents, without the tenting sites.
When I built the budget for next year,
So
the revenue,
increase.
I did just a conservative 3% multiplier on what was projected for this year. And it's kind of my rule of thumb is just to give the old 3% to the projected revenue of the current fiscal year. But again, now the projection and the actual has always mismatched in an overperformance of the actual.
I just got an internet report that it was up 3.5% in the Twin Cities at least.
Yeah. Pre-tax. Or is that, with everything?
It just says Consumer Price Index.
That's everything in there.
Yeah. So that argues for either 4 or 5.
It doesn't look that much difference.
Fix it faster this time.
He's playing with his phone.
Playing with this.
Just a minute. Phone's feeding back again.
Just
Phone.
The dog's fine.
There we go.
the chair is open to a
For
motion.
a motion to see what
Kind of
kind of majority
we might
we
have.
might have.
I see that one.
Dave, I used to raise the techniques issue along with everything else.
I'm comfortable with that based on what we've heard.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
I am too.
They haven't been raised for, what,
A year.
oh, just 1 year?
In 2023, it was 3% across the board. Same in 2022.
But 2024, we did 5% across the board, except the tents.
Right.
And do you hear any, is that, you know, how are our marina rates? Are those, with those, you know,
That's a whole different animal. I find the price per foot maybe is not keeping up with the South Shore. Having traveled down there and paid more in the $2 to $3 range per foot. I mean, we only have 2 reservable transient
It's not
slip,
that
so
much,
it's,
right?
it's a whole different market. And
But how about the seasonal docks?
again, that's a bit of a mismatch in kind of antiquated price per foot pricing. Most of the seasonal marinas I research sell a 40-foot dock for $5,000, and whatever size boat you put on is your business.
That's what you get.
They do flat pricing,
Hmm.
and very
Why,
few.
why don't we do that too?
We'd have to develop that price, and it would be like expensive for some that are used to parking a 24-foot on a 30-foot dock, and it'd be maybe a value for others that are parking a 30.
Well, if they don't use the whole dock, that's a different issue, right? I
Mm.
mean,
Yeah, this is just, again, it's our kind of antiquated price per foot has been our method of the seasonal price. We have 30-foot docks, and I would say the average size boat is about 26, maybe 28. And so, you know, they're paying 2,500 or whatever it is for a bucket, no, 70, what were we at last year, 71?
it would simplify your life if we used a flat rate instead of a price per foot, right?
It's simple either way. I think it would be a hardship to the
Right.
fleet that's used to paying by the foot, and if they suddenly had a big sticker shock for, oh, my slip's, $3,000, and they were used to paying 2,500, that's gonna be the hard part.
Did you hear anything about it when it went up? The 5%
Not by the
last?
incremental, no. No turnover, and we have a big, big waiting list, so part of me is like, you can't afford it, I'll call the next guy, but
Right. There's plenty of people waiting to get in.
I'm not that, I can't say that out loud.
But you're fine doing the 5% though across the board to them,
Sure.
and just doing that increment, okay. That seems much more easy to take than a $500 bill, you know.
Well, and again, it'd be sort of how you set the price, and you wouldn't want to leave money on the table, because you wouldn't want to suddenly be charging less than, let's say they were a 28-footer and they're paying $75 a foot, that's $2,100 for the season. And so you'd have to set your 30-foot slip at 21 or more.
Yeah.
And from my brief research, that's a bargain. Like a 30-foot slip, again, we're not the apostles, we're not even close, but that would probably be twice as much in a Apostle Islands setting,
But most of these boats are fishing boats, right?
almost all of them. Yeah, I don't want to present any strong feelings because it's really yours and the community's decision. So I just, as a manager, am anecdotally aware of no big complaints about our prices, an expectation for a marginal increase.
I don't know if it was Disraeli who said that the secret to taxation is to pluck the feathers from the goose without the goose minding. And
that.
it appears that there's some parallel here, and we could, I don't see any downside to 5%, as long as that's our goal to keep filling the city coffers. We don't think that any of the price increases we did so far have caused business problems. The only question I would have is whether we might fill up in May, more if we had a little lower price in May, but that's a separate discussion.
And we do, just to be aware, we have a May and October price, it's $5 off these rates.
Okay,
So it kind of covers the tax.
yeah.
Again, I would maybe, if there is a recommendation, it's to like work from these rules of thumb of 3 and 5 and clean up the cents. Where if you like the look of the 5, but we take out the quarters and 50 cents and put the pull through to 57, like I would say I guess it's a rounding error.
Even numbers make the
Yes.
bookkeeping simpler.
Yes.
What about doing the 5% and round them down?
That's what I'm suggesting, Kate, yeah. Like, so it's like
I hear a
33.
motion from Kay.
Yeah,
Because I'm kind
To
of,
approve the 5% increase across the board with the understanding that the pennies, the cents will be rounded down to the nearest whole dollar.
or up, like it goes to
Well-
33, 38, 48, 52, we gotta decide.
I would round down from
I
50
would
cents
too.
and up from 51 cents.
Okay, so then it's
No, I wouldn't.
33,
If you're okay with that.
Because I'm partly I'm like not convinced why to keep raising it more, just because people haven't complained.
yeah.
You know, it's like, so, and if we really needed money to do something next year, but I'm not hearing that either, you know, we're,
It isn't the we that we're talking about, I suspect it's the city coffers. You know,
Well, the general
you
fund
know, our-
certainly relies on our
Our
revenue.
charge is to see to it that the city taxpayers suffer
Right.
marginally less.
right. So how far do we go to pluck the feathers from the tourists that are coming into the campground, you know?
Well,
That's-
I think the decision is between 4% and 5%, because we had a CPI increase of 3.5. And what, if somebody maybe you didn't make that motion.
Well, that's where I would say the 5%, but round down. But it's
Like, take all the pennies away, so it's
Yeah.
33, 38, 48, 52.
52,
Okay,
56.
we have a motion from
68.
Kay to adopt a 5% increase, but to round all pennies, all cents down to the nearest dollar.
Mhm.
Is there a second to that motion? Don't
Even
rumble
like
all
the-
at once.
Even the EWS pull-through, so it would be $56 even, so we're talking even 75 cents rounded down.
Is there a second to that motion?
And then for,
Is Craig still with us?
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, is there discussion?
And just to be clear, this is just talking about nightly, weekly camping.
Right.
Okay.
Just talk about what?
The nightly, weekly camping rate. We'll
Oh.
address seasonal and marina next.
Right.
I thought we were raising the rates on everything.
Nope.
Just nightly, weekly.
Oh,
We'll get to the next two next.
I like it.
They're going up $1.
so there's no motion at the moment
Yeah.
on the floor with regard to the seasonal rates or the marina rates, is that correct?
Correct.
Correct.
Why is that?
Correct.
Because we're just looking at
We haven't
nightly,
talked
weekly.
about them.
Need to break them.
We're doing one section, do one section at a time.
One section at a
Yep.
time.
Okay, all right, so we have the motion and second. Any other further discussion? There being none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And I couldn't, there you go, aye, all right, so that's unanimous.
Aye.
All right, now, what do we want to do? We've done nightly and weekly camping. Now we're talking about seasonal rates and marina rates. I don't have any problem with the 5%
And the seasonal was 5.
on the other two categories.
Is there any griping, Dave, on seasonal rates?
Not openly, not vocally.
I think there, you need to, as you suggest, move things around and adjust it for max income and just kind of let them fall where they fall.
I don't understand what that means.
I think somebody who comes for the whole season needs to just put up with what the rates are.
Okay,
I think you can be attentive to rates nightly and just let them go seasonally.
when you say let them go, you mean just go ahead with 5%?
Just go for whatever you can get. People who are doing seasonal are doing that as an alternative to building a cabin, which is more expensive, probably.
Very much.
So your motion for the seasonal camping is 5%.
Well, Dave had some other suggestions, in it, did you not, in terms of reallocating space?
Well, we'll get to that last.
Okay.
Well, maybe we can divide the question between what the rates are and what these exceptions might be.
Yeah.
So is there a motion on the seasonal camping rates for 5%?
You bet.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there further discussion? There being no discussion, I'll call the vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 I heard everybody,
Aye.
including Craig. Yep. All right. Now, let's do the marina stuff first and then come back to the nuances.
Yes.
Is there anybody who owns a boat already owns a cash hole? So I'm happy to have it
Yep.
5% apply there as well.
I'll make that motion, 5% marina.
Sure.
Seconded by
Second.
Bob. Is there any discussion?
Our family has a 60-foot schooner for a good rate on the marina, so I should abstain on this whole vote.
But you're not.
Not in our marina.
Yeah, that's the best deal in the world down
Well,
there.
that's because all the docks are too short for it.
I don't know what he's worked out with Craig, but it's amazing. That thing is huge.
Who are you talking about now?
Oh, our son has a 60-foot boat
Oh.
in front of North House.
Oh,
If
but
he were paying by the foot, I'd have to support my kid.
But he gets off-season rates.
Yes.
Yeah, for 8 months out of the year.
so are you actually abstaining, or are you just, and therefore you're not seconding?
I'm just amazed that we get by. I guess it's not an abstention.
Okay. All those in favor then, on the marina rates being 5% increase, please say aye.
Aye.
Of everybody having said aye, including the chair, the rates have gone up. Now, let's talk about which of these things do you really like that you talked about as options, Dave? From an administrative standpoint as well as from a policy standpoint and a revenue standpoint.
Yeah, so we're talking about the rate classifications, like the site classifications, like a nightly versus a monthly. And this, I want to just give a little bit of backstory on with the history of the seasonals down there and their loyalty to the community, and the site count has been, fluctuating over time. As I point out, over 20 years ago, the park board recognized the value of that front row. It used to be all seasonals. They made a policy that says when the seasonal that's in that site currently leaves, the site reverts to an overnight site. As I've described, it's taken 20 years, but we're now into like 13 of the 15 are overnight. They're our highest yielding sites. Obviously, it was a good idea and took a long time to turn over. The recent history, particularly our review by the Parks and Trails Commission and their guideline or their guidance of a 20% campground seasonal for funding eligibility, we recently found out about that, like this spring. And it, to me, is a big piece of discussion. It's gonna take time. I don't recommend any decisions tonight on this. I'm more or less just testing the water for how do you feel about this idea? Not just for the bottom line and the revenue and the nightlies and but the funding, and then the sort of equity of the real estate, like we know anecdotally that the prime seasonal sites are above the front row, they're big, they're viewy, they're highly sought after by overnight guests. If and when a seasonal takes their trailer out of that site, it immediately starts to sell on the overnight market. And the people who, happen to walk into it are just thrilled, they can't believe they got this great site. And so there's this concept of like pleasing many, many people with prime sites versus pleasing a select few of, we've had this site for years, we're gonna keep coming back to it. So more of a social equity of the views down there. And we've seen this in the people, the overnight people talking about seasonal sites. Why do they get the good sites? This isn't fair. It's just a thread of equity that because we're selling real estate at a price, there's been a history of imbalance.
Well, I just read the summary that you have, and I'm sort of attracted to the idea of having those sites, once the seasonal people leave, that they become overnight, the second group that you spoke of there, so, was it,
31 prime.
yeah. So, it seems to me that there's all kinds of logic in favor of continuing that transition.
That's why I brought it up. Again, I don't want it to be my idea, because it's a bit of a lightning rod right now with the seasonals. You know, they're very keen on change, being, how does this affect me, my site? And so I've sort of reassured everyone that there wouldn't be a scoot the rug out from under you policy change where like suddenly you're gone.
No,
But-
as I understand it, the proposal that's implicit in these remarks is that we simply continue the pattern of when people leave the park from those sites, they become overnight sites or seasonal, or not seasonal, overnight sites.
That's right, nightly. And so I've talked about this with staff too, and it is pretty profound. It's how do we manage these? Are they reservable? Are they non-reservable? Presently, the front row is non-reservable. You must be present to register and upgrade. And so we attract a line on the porch in the mornings for people to get into the front row sites. They're that in demand that we don't necessarily want to manage another 31 in that drop-in market. So it's more development of would they be reservable? And if so, would they be at a different price, a higher price would be logical. And so I think for the purpose of tonight's meeting, it's a test, like I say, test the waters. How's everyone feeling about this idea? If you wish to pursue it, we need to work out the details of the transition and the booking scheme on these sites and the price of these sites.
I like the idea, and I think you should go ahead. And I think the minutes, if nobody objects, the minutes could reflect that the board suggested that you pursue that.
Does it disturb the milieu to have people pulling in and out of the front?
Not presently, but
The
that's
seasonal ones stay put, they don't move.
correct.
And there's two front rows in and out a lot, right?
Yeah, like every day there's changeover on the
So when
front
you
row.
say they're reservable, you mean they have to come in to be there?
To register for the front row, you must be present in person, in line, with an opening.
And so if there's an opening, then these people can move in, and if not, they can't. So they could be somewhere else in the park,
Right.
moving over.
Am I correct that you can come and be in person and reserve for a night down the road somewhere later, or is it just for the next night? What do you have to stand in line for?
Do you one
So
night, or can I do
You
5
can go up to
nights?
14,
14.
yeah.
I'm sorry.
And so you're standing in line to get the upgrade, to get the front row site, and you can stay for up to 14 nights.
Okay.
And those are
But,
the $70 a night sites. Now, we don't give a weekly discount on them, and they yield, 10 grand per site. But back to your question, Steve, about registering in person for a night down the road, at our park or at a different date, like later out, you have to reserve from our reservable sites, which are not the front row. But if these 31 prime sites were to suddenly now say, okay, seasonals who are in there can stay. Once you leave, it goes nightly. We need to decide, is it nightly reservable, like online, on the phone?
and I think we need to hear yours and the staff's recommendation on that question. I
Yeah.
think the general point about converting them is unanimous as far as I am aware from
Well,
the
I've
discussion
got-
so far. No?
I have a question, and maybe I'm just like tired. So how many, like this requirement or standard from the Parks and Trails Commission? So when they say no more than 20% of the sites are seasonal, so how many total seasonal sites do we have now?
90.
So
And we have 300, well, it's more like
Oh, yeah.
296. So that our 20% threshold is like 60 sites.
So we have to get rid of
sites.
30. Yeah, okay.
Which is,
Convert.
which is a strange
Convert.
coincidence in this 31 prime number,
Right,
but it's true that we,
right. Gotcha.
So you recently learned that from the
from the GM,
regional,
PT, yeah.
So, and when is their time frame for that?
That's the kind of follow-up I want to do, given the direction of tonight's, feelings. If we
Right.
want to pursue this, we got to get with the
Right.
GMRPT and ask them, what's the deal with that 20% rule? Does it have to be in effect when we apply and get funding, or can we phase them in?
Right.
It's a wonderful reason to have to make a move like that. Because we have, don't you think we have really good potential for major funding, for improvements?
For sure.
So
Absolutely, yeah.
it's not, we're just doing it because the community doesn't want
Or we're trying to make money.
free rent,
Right,
from people. So,
that's right.
yeah, I guess getting a sense of, phasing down or whatever from the Parks and Trails people, like how quickly does that
Right.
need to happen?
Mhm.
And then what kind of action do we need to take to do that?
Mhm.
But definitely moving in that direction, for sure.
So am I correct then that we're unanimously directing Dave to continue the process of shifting the sites, these 31 sites, as people leave, to overnight sites or weekly sites? And that we're going to ask him to follow up with staff recommendations and state information about how this impacts our applications for.
Yeah, I think the Parks and Trails comes first, in my mind,
Okay.
that discussion, before you start telling
That's-
people their site can't be reserved.
Mhm.
And so, finding out their time frame of when no more than 20%.
Right,
I mean, talking 2 years, 5 years, how
Right.
long do we get to
right.
make that change? And, because at some point, we may have to start kicking people out.
Uh-huh.
I mean, how many do you see in the last 5 years, since when you did this, how many have people?
Turned over?
Turned over.
A surprising number, like 6, 8. There's 2 that would be placed this spring right now, or this, just as an answer to that, there's 2 that would be affected immediately by this.
Because the people aren't coming back. Yeah, well, that's an easy one, in my mind.
And when people are seasonal, can they give it to their kids or
No.
something?
No,
It's
No.
the name on the thing, and then when they're done, it's done.
Is there any kind of written agreement that they have it forever? Or-
No.
Oh,
no. And
It's just
and
been
for years, I've tried
practice.
to change the lexicon of, it's not a permanent site.
uh-huh,
It's a seasonal site. Because that's the call we get. How much are your permanent sites? And I say, we don't have permanent sites. We have
Oh.
seasonal sites. They're on a year-to-year camping fee structure. They do sign a terms and conditions agreement to protect our liability, but there's no deeds
guarantee.
or contracts or guarantees.
I have another meeting I was supposed to go to at 5:30. Have we gone as far as we need to with discussion today, or is there some more additional vote we need to make?
Got one comment. Don't you think the front row could use an aesthetic upgrade? I ride my bike down that row on my way from home to town. And it seems to me that it's a lot of boxes in a row without a lot of trees.
Trees are blocking the view. And the sidewalks.
For the second row?
For the front row. People love the south end of that
Open.
row because there's no trees and it's
Wide open.
all
to
water.
Well, there's always bushes.
But, yeah, I get you. We put in nice new round grills, like uniformly spaced.
Yeah.
We put in newer, nicer picnic tables. So we've already been sort of aware of these sites being the best. The next step to me would be like more gravel, flatter gravel.
Yeah.
The trees, yeah, not so much, because honestly, the trees block the view and the backing angles. So we do kind of have that balance of like,
Yeah.
I get it though.
I'm kind of an old guy, but not compared to Steve. But if you can see the lake, you don't have enough trees. I mean, you don't
We're
need,
selling the view though.
you don't need to live in it.
We're
You don't
selling the
need to
lake.
li-
Yeah, they want the
Not
lake.
You don't need to live in it. You walk down to it.
Not if you're here for
But
2
I'm a
nights.
backpacker.
Not
Not
even
a-
for 2 nights.
I'm a
You gotta go
backpacker.
to the 300th loop, my
I'm
friend.
a backpacker, not a hard side camper.
300th loop.
That's right.
It's all trees.
Not everybody was gonna share your view, I bet.
Well, my
No,
other point is, I think that taxes are too low here and everybody's got a good deal, but boy, is that not gonna sell with the city council. I mean, really, what we pay here compared to Duluth or Minneapolis, it's amazing, it's wonderful.
Well, we also have a dramatically lower incomes profile than either of those, well, than Minneapolis, I don't know about Duluth.
Yeah,
And we pay more for food.
yeah, I mean, there are offsetting things, but still, we're starting from a pretty good playing field, I think.
well, I've got the message that this is an idea worth pursuing. I know
Yes.
the kind of details I need to follow up on. I want this to be slowly thought about and talked about over the next few months so that it's not a surprise to the seasonals or the community. And so it's been a good discussion tonight. And there's no rush. If there's a timeline on this, it's like maybe before the February offering season of the waiting list sites. I will say one final little bit, and that is we have an internal waiting list of the seasonals that are there in a standard site without the view. So they're looking for these prime sites. There's about a dozen people of our 60 standard seasonal sites. We offer this internal waiting list for the prime site. And again, it's a win for us because it takes this sort of, I don't know what to call it, greed or equity out of who's getting the best site, the fairness factor. Like, how did that guy get that site? Well, he was on an internal waiting list, et cetera. And so if we didn't have this, you can get a prime site if you take a standard site for 5 years. It's like, it speeds that up or it makes that more level. If the seasonals are all standard, I don't feel as like despair to not, when one guy's got a view and one guy doesn't, and it's only a, whatever, $500 price difference. It fixes that list too.
So,
Yeah.
So I'm just dissenting. 3 times in my life have I owned a house on Lake Superior. 3 times we sold it because it's a cold, disagreeable lake. And I don't see why everybody else doesn't appreciate that point of view.
Because they're only here for 2
Because
weeks
they're
in
here
July.
July and August.
the
Yeah,
problem is you lived in those houses in the winter.
Yeah, exactly. You should move this.
but I also sold those houses too.
All
Well,
right,
you did, when you sold the one, you didn't need to buy another one because you already knew, right?
I'm slow learner.
Yeah.
I got a question on the sheet,
Yes,
if we have time.
can we finish this discussion? Is this the same
This will
issue?
take like 30 seconds.
Okay,
Looking at the city expenditure budget worksheet, there's an item there for toilet rental, I understand that. What is a bank charge of 70,000?
credit card processing fees
It's really 45,000.
or more.
And
It's,
that's with you, or is that?
no, that's just for the campground. Yeah, because we do like 1.5 million and 3% of that is bank
There
charges.
you go.
Wow.
Is there some way to reduce that number?
Cash.
People that pay with cash.
You don't want
Charge a
that.
fee.
do we want to open it up to auction by other banks?
Well, no, I mean, I appreciate card charges, but they do end up as being that much.
It's the cost of doing
Yeah.
business.
Yeah,
It's very
And the
expensive.
more we spend on that, the more we're making, is my,
It's a percentage.
yeah.
yeah. I mean, we had that in our little hilltop business too, but
Yeah, and as a staff, we talked about this trend of, an extra bank card charge, 3%,
Yeah, yeah.
whatever. We're not into that. We'd rather raise our rates 5%.
right.
Okay, your 30 seconds are up.
I'm done.
Now, let's go back to the question of what we've decided. The minutes will reflect that we've said, yes, continue the transfer of prime seasonal sites to overnight and weekly camping as people leave. And the rest of it you will study, including the question of the 20% of the state and the staff issues and
Right.
all those things.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, so the minutes will reflect that, and we won't blame Bob for any of it.
I
But
hope-
he's back
I
to
hope-
the WPA now.
I hope Craig didn't hear me say the taxes are too low. I just
Okay.
hope that.
Is there anything further that we have to do before I declare the meeting adjourned? Hearing nothing, the meeting is adjourned.
thank you all.
Great,
Thank you.
also with you.
Our pleasure.